Strict laws, including a two-child policy, are enforced. One evening, Jim surprises his kids, Josh and Zoe, with a rare orange. Maddie rushes in, warning that the population police are downstairs. The family panics, as they've been hiding Zoe, their third child. The police search the house and Zoe is hidden in an air vent, but her whimper gives her away and she is dragged out. In a rage, Jim attacks the officers and is sentenced to Golad prison. 2 years later, Jim's health deteriorates in prison. During a visit, Elizabeth tells him she's been accepted into the 10th pilgrimage to Terra Nova but can't take Zoe. Before leaving, she secretly gives him a rebreather with a hidden laser knife. Meanwhile, Elizabeth, Maddie, and Josh pass through the time portal. Desperate to follow, Jim makes a bold move, smuggling a bag and breaching a restricted area. Guards intercept him, but Jim, knowing his family has passed through, fights a guard, grabs a gun, and charges toward the portal. On the other side, the Shannons reunite, but a soldier nearly discovers Jim's secret. As the soldier is about to inspect Jim's bag, Zoe is revealed inside, wearing the rebreather. Against all odds, Jim smuggled her through. As the 10th pilgrimage arrives in Terra Nova, Zoe marvels at the new world, and Jim is touched when she calls him Daddy. Commander Taylor greets the family and, in a rare act of kindness, allows them to stay together. Jim is assigned to the agricultural sector. Tensions arise when Josh confronts Jim about the strain his prison time caused. During their argument, they realize Zoe has wandered off. Outside, Zoe offers ferns to a brachiosaur, drawing a crowd of colonists and dinosaurs alike. The next day, the family goes their separate ways. Jim begins his new assignment. Maddie attends the orientation meeting, and Josh meets Sky, who introduces him to Terra Nova. Elizabeth starts work at the hospital. Sky takes Josh to Snakehead Falls and shows him rocks with golden symbols, warning him that Commander Taylor has forbidden visits to the area. At the hospital, Elizabeth is taken hostage by a patient who reacts violently upon hearing the word Sixers. He escapes and attempts to assassinate Commander Taylor, but Jim intervenes, saving Taylor's life. Later, Taylor explains that the Sixers are a rogue faction that arrived with the 6th pilgrimage and are smuggling weapons. Impressed by Jim, Taylor recruits him into Terra Nova's security team. Maddie and Zoe are walking through the colony when a soldier named Mark approaches and commined in their conversation. In the woods, Taylor and Jim saw a group of Sixers heading towards the colony and they chased them. Then they realized they were not firing at them. Instead, the Sixers were fleeing from 2 Carnotaurus that were chasing them. Taylor used his gun to alert the colony, and one of the Carnotaurus ran directly towards him. Jim came driving and got between the Carnotaurus and Taylor, saving him. Then they managed to escape and got in safely, closing the gate on the Carnotaurus. At this point, Mira from the Sixers got off the car and everyone pointed their guns at her. After an intense standoff, Mira suggested a trade. She will give them meteoric iron, and in return, she wants one of her men, Carter, to be free with medical supplies. After the Shannon family reunited safely and headed home, Jim tried to comfort Zoe because she was shaken up by what she witnessed. Sky, Josh, and Sky's friends walked through the woods. Sky gave him alcohol and he tasted it. Later, as Elizabeth is working, Taylor apologizes for what happened to her with the prisoner. He then asked why she was there even though she was a very good doctor, and she told him that she wants her children to have a better future. He mentioned that he also did the same with his son. As Josh and Sky are making moonshine.
Look like bro hitting on bro wife. I ain't gonna front. I'm probably reading the situation wrong. I said reading the situation wrong. Well, let's go.
Shine from fruits. He confessed his disagreements with his father and she joked about it, making him laugh. The Sixers drove off with Carter and the supplies they got. They decided to collect something from a nearby truck and 2 Sixers got out of the car, but they were attacked by pterosaurs. Taylor called Jim and showed him Josh and the others sneaking off the colony. Josh and the others also heard a sound. Josh noticed the blood of the Sixer that was attacked by the pterosaurs. They ran to hide in the truck nearby, and inside they found the other Sixer that managed to escape, Drake. They rushed to get inside and saw Drake was severely injured. The pterosaurs started attacking the truck. Taylor and Jim, along with the security team, rushed to save the kids that are stuck in the woods. Meanwhile, in the truck, the kids managed to...
Question. So, basically, they teleported to the past. That's what it looked like. Oh, I'm mistaken. Huh? Let's go. I'm probably chatting.
Find a radio and attempt
trying
to
to roll up a
contact the
donkey in the
colony.
meantime.
They finally got connected with Taylor and told him the situation. Jim took the radio and talked to Jim. Panicking, Tasha got out of the truck and started running off into the woods. Back in the colony, Mark came to Shannon's house to check if Maddie was all right, and she asked him to stay. As the security team is driving, they find Tasha injured. From her clothes, they figured that she had to go through water to get there. Sky suggested they make a run for their rover cause no one will come for them. As they are discussing their plan, Hunter is taken by a pterosaurs, prompting Josh and Sky to get out and attack it with their gun. The security team managed to reach the area at this time and save them from the attack. They all go back to the colony and Elizabeth is relieved to see Josh safe. Sky apologized to Taylor about what happened. He told her it was okay but warned her to be careful. Later that night, the Shannon family gathered and looked at the sky, amazed by how the moon was getting closer. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Okuda and 2 soldiers are attacked by an unseen creature while on a supply run. Back in Terra Nova, Maddie, Zoe, and Josh attend a survival seminar taught by Alicia to learn essential skills for life in their new world. The Shannon family adjusts to their new home. Zoe brings in a pitcher plant, and Josh returns from community service. Zoe, still used to sleeping with her mother during Jim's time in prison, refuses to sleep alone. Later, Jim and Elizabeth are interrupted by a strange noise, and Jim unknowingly scares off the creature that attacked Okuda's team. He returns to find Zoe asleep beside Elizabeth. The next day, Taylor and Jim plan a search for the missing men, suspecting Sixer's involvement. Jim surprises Elizabeth when he meets her old acquaintance, Malcolm Wallace, who realizes Jim has been released from GOLAD. Taylor asks Jim to investigate a potential leak to the Sixers during the mission. Josh and Sky visit the market.
That boy wasn't released from nowhere. That boy broke out.
Where Josh is tempted by a guitar, but can't afford it. Jim, Taylor, and their team search for the missing soldiers and find them dead, their faces covered in blood. Malcolm later confirms the creatures are migrating pterosaurs, whose breeding grounds were disrupted by Terra Nova's construction. Later that night, the Shannons' house got attacked by pterosaurs. Josh and Jim went out to kick them away, but realized they were actually dangerous. Malcolm and Elizabeth work on capturing live specimens to study, hoping to lure the creatures to a safer breeding ground using a pheromone. In the market, Josh and Sky went back to Casey, the owner. This time he shifts his interest to Josh's platinum necklace, but Josh refuses to trade it, revealing it was a gift from his girlfriend. As Josh and Sky talk, bird-like creatures attack, and Josh shields Sky from danger. Mark got assigned to keep an eye on the Shannons' house. The pterosaurs eventually attack the colony and security forces are deployed. As pterosaurs swarm the colony, security forces are stationed, and Mark is assigned to guard the Shannons' home. When the pterosaurs break into the house, knocking Mark unconscious, Maddie, Josh, and Sky drag him to safety, but Zoe is left hiding. Just as a pterosaur approaches her, Josh steps in, kicking it away and saving her. Outside, Jim and Taylor execute their plan, spraying the pheromone to lure the creatures away from the colony. The pterosaurs follow the scent to a new breeding ground, restoring peace to the colony. After the ordeal, Sky playfully tells Josh she owes him 60 terras and kisses him on the cheek. That night, Jim and Elizabeth
60 who? 60 pipes? Said us.
return home, relieved to find their family safe, and retreat to rest. Meanwhile, Dr. Jonathan Guagenti, distracted by a green beetle, is devoured by a Carnotaurus. Jim and Elizabeth discuss a mission to investigate the silence at Outpost 3, and Jim heads back home to retrieve her forgotten wedding ring. Zoe falls ill while Josh plays his newly acquired guitar for Sky and her friends. At Outpost 3, Taylor and Elizabeth find eerie signs of distress and discover survivors suffering from memory loss. They uncover a video of a scientist discussing genetic manipulation, hinting at a virus. Taylor insists no one can leave until the mystery is solved. Back at home, Maddie expresses her worries about ruining her date with Mark, and Jim reassures her with a story about his first date with Elizabeth. Ignoring Washington's quarantine order, Jim convinces Malcolm to lend him a rover to help. Malcolm gives Jim a root to suppress his cold for 12 hours. Josh and Sky grow closer, kissing while discussing the mysterious writing they found near Snakehead Falls. Josh admits he's still thinking about Kara, and Sky offers to help bring Kara to Terra Nova. At Outpost 3, Jim is shot by Elizabeth, who doesn't recognize him, thinking she's still in medical school. Malcolm realizes Elizabeth has lost 20 years of memory. Heartbroken, Jim watches as Malcolm reintroduces him to his wife. Back at the colony, Skye introduces Josh to Tom Boylan, a smuggler. Josh asks Tom for help bringing Kara to Terra Nova, and Tom agrees, if Josh can earn his trust. As Malcolm and Elizabeth work on a cure for memory loss, Taylor, suffering from the virus, returns to Terra Nova, confused and threatening violence. Washington intervenes, calming Taylor and reminding him that the war is over and Terra Nova is now his home. She gently tells him that his wife, Ayani, is dead. At the outpost, Elizabeth discovers notes with the names of her family, Josh, Maddie, Zoe, and Jim, and realizes she's married to Jim. He shows her their wedding ring to jog her memory. Though initially upset, she is reassured when Jim affirms that his love for her goes beyond memories. When Jim sneezes, Elizabeth remembers the route Malcolm gave him and suspects it may hold the key to blocking the virus. Determined to find a cure, they investigate the route but discover it's not the cause of immunity. When Jim sneezes again, Elizabeth realizes that it's his cold that's blocking the virus. Excited by the discovery, she explains how it could lead to a cure, and Jim celebrates by kissing her. Meanwhile, Taylor regains consciousness, fully aware of his surroundings, and commends Washington for her quick actions. Elsewhere, Tom Boylan meets with Mira, delivering supplies but refusing to provide weapons, fearing it would draw too much attention. He also informs her that Josh is trying to bring his girlfriend to Terra Nova, which pleases Mira, confirming Tom's role as a Sixer spy. Corporal Riley and his team spot movement in the jungle and notify Washington, who leads a group outside the walls. They find a young girl, Leah, who claims she's looking for the portal to return to a relative in 2149. Jim explains that the portal only works one way. Leah mentions losing her bag in the jungle, prompting Taylor to send Washington to retrieve it. The Shannon family takes Leah into their home. While searching for the bag, Washington's team is ambushed by Sixers.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I don't even trust that little girl. Talking about she want to go back to 20 whatever year, 2150. Damn. Imagine that, bro. We in 2024. In a couple of 100 years, our ancestors gonna be like, these old fucks.
And taken captive. Mira returns Washington to Terra Nova and negotiates with Taylor, offering the release of his soldiers in exchange for Leah. Taylor suggests Leah decide for herself, and she chooses to stay in the colony. Mira keeps her word and frees Washington and her team. At home, the Shannon family tries to make Leah feel welcome, while Taylor asks Jim to help find the colony's mole. Robert Stanley, who arrived with the 6th Pilgrimage but didn't join the Sixers, becomes a suspect. Jim and Taylor question him during a field study, but he denies being a spy. Malcolm defends Robert, leaving Jim and Taylor without answers. The security team later investigates a break-in at the McMillan home, uncovering a hidden compartment once used by Mira. They track down Leah, who is found carrying a strange box Mira ordered her to retrieve in exchange for her brother's safety. The box remains unopened, as no one can figure out how to unlock it. Jim sets out to rescue Leah's brother, Sam, but is caught in a Sixer trap. Mira reveals that Sam was never in danger. She only manipulated Leah into believing he was. She confides that someone in 2149, who holds her daughter Sienna, controls her actions and wants Taylor gone. Though Mira urges Jim to switch sides, she ultimately lets him and Sam go. Back in the colony, Leah is overjoyed to be reunited with her brother. Meanwhile, a Terra Nova security team member, Foster, is killed by a Nicoraptor at a communications station. Jim discovers claw marks inside the station.
Niggas is getting killed by humans, dinosaurs, all types of shit.
Leading him to suspect someone lured the Nicoraptor there to kill Foster. At the medical center, Malcolm and Elizabeth help Zoe hatch an Ankylosaurus egg they found near the station. Though the baby has a deformity, Elizabeth performs surgery to ensure its survival. As Jim and Washington investigate Foster's death, they learn from Mark that Foster had a secret affair. They retrieve Foster's missing tag from the Nicoraptor and find photos of a woman named Rebecca Milner, who denies the affair. Her husband Howard confesses to killing Foster out of jealousy. Taylor faces the decision of whether to imprison or banish Howard to the jungle. With the colonists present, Taylor announces his decision to banish Howard. Suspicious of Howard's confession, Jim tracks him down in the jungle and confronts him, questioning whether Howard is covering for Rebecca. When they return to the colony, Rebecca admits that she didn't kill Foster either, and reveals they broke up weeks ago due to his gambling habits at Boylan's bar. Jim and Washington dig into Foster's financial records and discover someone owed him a lot of money. Boylan is arrested for running illegal gambling and skimming winnings, but he denies any involvement in Foster's death. Jim, upset, finds out that Josh has been secretly working at Boylan's bar and makes him quit. The security team searches the bar for financial records but comes up empty-handed. After Boylan is questioned by Taylor, it's reported that he has escaped into the jungle. Jim, Taylor, and Curran join the hunt for him. However, Taylor unexpectedly starts questioning Curran about Foster's murder, revealing that Boylan hadn't really escaped. Boylan had informed them that Curran owed Foster a large sum of money. Curran denies killing Foster, but under pressure, he pulls his sonic rifle on Jim and Taylor, only to find that Taylor had disabled it beforehand. Taylor subdues Curran and finds the financial records in his jacket, confirming his involvement. Curran is banished on the spot and sent into the jungle.
Banish? I wasn't banishing shit. He was getting shot. Could I say that? Whatever.
Unarmed. Later, Jim allows Josh to return to work but reminds him that there should be no secrets in their family. Josh and Sky follow Boylan's instructions to meet with Mira, who offers to bring Josh's girlfriend Kara from 2149 in exchange for his agreement to perform a task for her in the future without question. Josh reluctantly agrees, and Mira sends them back to the colony. Meanwhile, the Ankylosaurus egg finally hatches. Zoe begs her parents to keep the hatchling, and they agree to take care of it for now. The Shannon family is preparing to head out when Maddie rushes everyone so she can sneak away with Mark. Josh sees Sky walking with a sick hunter who they initially believe is just hungover. However, at the hospital, Elizabeth reveals that a parasite is growing inside him and shows him the scan. Meanwhile, Jim takes Zoe to The Eye, a holographic simulator that showcases Earth's history from the 2149 timeline. Zoe asks to see the house she was born in, and after that, they enjoy a virtual roller coaster ride. Maddie meets up with Mark, and the two slip outside the gate for a picnic. As they're about to kiss, Mark notices.
Yo, the thought of the planet ever ceasing to hold humans, that shit is crazy. No lie. I be seeing these movies about, oh, people gotta time travel after the government did such and such. Bro, imagine. Sick.
Notices something in the sky, a meteor streaking through the atmosphere. The meteor explodes, sending out an EMP that disables all electronics in the colony, followed by a shockwave that causes minor damage. The EMP also knocks out the power in the room Jim and Zoe are in.
Was that the meteor that killed the dinosaurs? I'm trolling, but what the fuck just happened?
Locking them inside due to the electronic door locks. Outside the colony, Mark realizes neither his rover nor his radio works. He reassures Maddie that they can walk back to the settlement before nightfall. Back in the colony, Malcolm informs Taylor that they have a contingency for such events, but the chip needed to restore power is damaged. The only person who can fix it is Boylan. Boylan, eager to show off his skills, starts bragging, but Taylor quickly shuts him down with a threat, forcing him to get to work. Jim discovers a small escape route under the viewing chair and sends Zoe through it, small enough to fit. Meanwhile, Elizabeth begins operating on Hunter to remove the parasite. Mira learns about the colony's power failure and the banishment of one of their own, prompting her to plan an attack on Terra Nova. Mark revises his estimate and tells Maddie they'll need to spend the night in the jungle. To avoid detection by predators, they cover themselves in pungent slime to mask their scents and decide to sleep in a tree for safety. During the night, they share their first kiss. Knowing her forces are outnumbered, Mira brings an empyrosaur to Terra Nova's fence, hoping to use it as a diversion. Meanwhile, Zoe crawls through the tunnel beneath the eye room and manages to manually unlock the door. Once Jim is freed, he hears about the attack. Taylor and Jim create a firewall at the gate to scare off the empyrosaur. Taylor notices something attached to the dinosaur's back, realizing it's a distraction. They rush to the lab to check on the box, but are ambushed by Carter and two Sixers. After a brief fight, Carter escapes with the box and delivers it to Mira. Boylan successfully repairs the chip, restoring power to the colony, and Elizabeth successfully removes the parasite from Hunter. The next morning, Maddie and Mark return to the settlement. Maddie tells her parents she got a lot done during her studies, and blames the jungle's stench on trash. In the jungle, Mira and Carter meet a man named Lucas. Lucas reminds Mira that her mission through the time portal was to bring something to him. When he opens the recovered box, it reveals graphics resembling those near the waterfall. When warned about Taylor, Lucas cryptically states that Dad will soon have to make a choice. Jim and Taylor fish off a cliff surrounded by fish.
Bro, by the looks of it, bro, that said Dad, he manipulating that black girl, that black lady, and she thinks she doing the right thing. You know, people who just battle hungry and ignorant. Somebody come to them with a bad idea, they're like, yeah, sure, anything for the cause, because that guy is evil. Yeah, they don't even know the backstory.
Bones left by pterosaurs. When Jim hooks a large swordfish that almost pulls him over, Taylor grabs him just in time, preventing a fall. At Terra Nova, Elizabeth informs Maddie that Dr. Ken Horton is returning from jungle research. Excited, Maddie hopes to get his autograph. When Horton arrives, he irritates Malcolm by forgetting his name before going for a medical checkup with Elizabeth and Maddie. At Boylan's bar, Tom Boylan tells Josh that Mira is calling in her favor for bringing Kara to Terra Nova. Josh must steal a rare medication from his mother's lab to help the sick at the Sixers camp. Dr. Horton passes his medical exam but declines a brain scan, eager to return to his work. He offers Maddie a tour of his lab and a position as his assistant. Sky warns Josh about the risks of helping Mira. Meanwhile, Horton signs Maddie's book, but he doesn't remember a joke or the letter he wrote her years ago. Curious, he asks to see the letter, and Maddie promises to bring it the next day. Frustrated, Josh demands proof from Boylan that Mira can deliver on her promise. Boylan takes Josh, hooded, to the Sixers camp, where Mira shows him a holographic message from Kara. Satisfied, Josh agrees to steal the medicine. At home, Maddie notices Horton's signature in her book doesn't match the one in her old letter. Elizabeth suggests Horton's memory lapses might be due to a stroke. By the sea, Jim and Taylor find a recently extinguished campfire which Taylor identifies as Curran's. He sends Jim back to the colony while he tracks down Curran. At the colony, Horton shows Maddie how green beetles can save the deceased apple crop. Maddie gives him the letter, but he continues to struggle with his memory. She releases the beetles, and they quickly start helping the apple trees. Josh steals his mother's keycard so Boylan can replicate it, ensuring the break-in won't be traced back to Elizabeth. When Josh tries to use the fake keycard to access the medicine, it fails, forcing him to use a sonic pistol to blast open the cabinet, injuring himself but successfully retrieving the medication. In the jungle, Taylor follows a trail of blood and finds
Niggas would do anything for bitches, bro. Betray their whole family for a bitch. And then when the bitch come around now, she probably she probably got some other dude she waiting on the other side. Why you over here doing all those crimes and shit, dickhead?
finds Curran with a badly injured leg. Back at the colony, Jim reports to Washington about Taylor tracking Curran. She updates Jim on the lab break-in, while Malcolm and Horton argue over Horton's failure to provide a summary of his research. Despite their history, Taylor treats Curran's infected leg without explaining his intentions. Maddie becomes suspicious after finding her letter burned in the trash. She notices Horton, who usually walks with a limp, moves easily when alone, retrieving the letter remains before resuming his limp. In the garden, Jim and Elizabeth discuss the break-in. Elizabeth mentions the stolen medicine could be critical. Josh, distressed, asks if more can be made. and when Elizabeth says it must wait for the next pilgrimage, he angrily storms off. Maddie suspects someone is impersonating Horton using facial surgery. She secretly retrieves the real Dr. Horton's DNA from an old letter and compares it with the imposter's DNA taken from his cup. Malcolm catches her but eagerly helps, wanting to expose the fraud. Meanwhile, feeling guilty, Josh steals a vial of medicine from Boylan's bar to help the patient his mother mentioned. He tells Boylan that Jim is investigating, leading Boylan to frame a customer to divert attention from himself and Josh. The DNA results confirm the man as Horton, but Horton overhears Malcolm and Maddie's conversation, raising suspicions. The man framed by Boylan is brought in, high on the stolen drug, but Jim feels something is off. In the jungle, Taylor fends off the ancestral Komodo dragon with a knife and torch, forcing it to retreat. He tells Curran that
Yo, wasn't he, the dude in, whatchamacallit? What's that movie called? Fuck. It was a movie just like this. If y'all remember, in the comment section, let me know.
For redemption, he must infiltrate the Sixers and identify the mole. Maddie's investigation through the Eye reveals that Dr. Horton was likely killed by his assistant.
Yeah. Fucking Avatar. He was the nigga in Avatar in the robot suit. Now I remember. Yeah, he mad aggressive. No diddy.
Andrew Fickett, who is now impersonating him. Fickett confronts Maddie, but she escapes when someone interrupts. Rushing to pick up Zoe, she finds that Horton has already taken her. Maddie tracks Fickett to the apple orchard and sends Zoe home with a coded message for Jim. Fickett reveals his true identity, ties Maddie to a tree, and threatens her with a deadly spider. Just before the spider strikes, Jim arrives, disarms Fickett, and saves Maddie. Later, the family praises Maddie's sharp instincts. Josh confesses his involvement in stealing medicine for the Sixers to bring Kara to Terra Nova. Jim confronts Boylan, who reveals Mira's secret communication link with 2149. Jim informs Taylor, who suspects his estranged son Lucas may be involved, but dismisses any idea of rescuing him, citing their complicated relationship. Maddie walks through the apple orchard, reflecting and picking a healthy apple. A dragonfly passes through Terra Nova, landing in Mira's hand. "What have you got for me today?" she murmurs, inspecting the insect. Meanwhile, Tom Boylan is held in the brig after his arrest, and Commander Taylor interrogates him about his Sixer ties. Boylan, however, denies knowing anything. Frustrated, Taylor leaves him with a blaring alarm. As the Shannons prepare for the Harvest Festival, Josh asks Jim about Boylan's situation. Jim explains that Boylan is still detained, and at Josh's urging, he questions Taylor. Taylor takes Jim to see Boylan and admits that even tampering with Boylan's food hasn't forced a confession. Later, Boylan, delirious and mistaking Jim for Taylor, mutters about something buried under the pilgrim's tree. Curious, Jim investigates and locates the tree with Malcolm Wallace's help, discovering skeletal remains at its base. Elizabeth notes the body is missing its right arm and has a gunshot wound, agreeing to run tests while Jim keeps the discovery a secret. Meanwhile, Mark's team is ambushed by Sixers while transporting supplies.
Oh shit, I'm over here chatting and the mic off and shit. But what the fuck is that?
To Med Outpost 9, losing the goods. At the colony, Maddie directs a play about Terra Nova's history, with Zoe playing Taylor. During rehearsal, the dragonfly reappears and a soldier swats it down, revealing a microchip attached to its body. Malcolm analyzes the dragonfly and determines it was used to send messages between the Sixers and a spy within the colony. However, its wings are too damaged to track the sender. Taylor releases Boylan after realizing he couldn't have tipped off the Sixers while in the brig. Elizabeth discovers the body belongs to someone who arrived between the second and third pilgrimages, a person not officially recorded. At Boylan's bar, Jim questions him about the body. Boylan denies knowledge of the murder, but admits Taylor asked him to help bury it the night Lucas disappeared. Malcolm confronts Elizabeth about the investigation, arguing it should be reported to him, and storms off to inform Taylor. Jim later tells Taylor the body was found based on an anonymous tip, but Taylor dismisses it as a Sixers corpse, raising suspicion. Malcolm reveals the Sixers controlled the dragonfly using a sound frequency. Despite the damaged wings, he manages to repair it. Taylor decides to release the dragonfly during the Harvest Festival to trace the spy. It leads them to Jim Shannon's house. During Zoe's play, Jim and Elizabeth notice a character, General Richard Philbrick, has only one arm. Before they can investigate further, Taylor arrests Jim, accusing him of being the Sixers' spy. In the brig, Taylor offers to release Jim if he stops investigating the body. Jim refuses, prompting Taylor to reveal that he killed General Philbrick in self-defense after Philbrick pulled a gun on him. Lucas had been working on a two-way time portal to send Terra Nova's resources back to the future, but Taylor destroyed his work. When Philbrick tried to take command from Taylor, he was forced to kill him. Taylor couldn't bring himself to kill Lucas, so he let him flee. Jim and Taylor agree to...
So basically, they went back in time to get resources for their new timeline. Buddy over here felt like, oh hell no, I'm not going back to that shitty ass timeline, bro. I could be a boss over here. All I gotta do is just take out that fat ass pig and I'm Gucci. But his son was in the way, so you know what he did? He smoked, bro, and banished his son. Now I see why his son is doing the Sixers and yeah, I get it now.
Keep this secret, and Taylor releases Jim, confident he's not the spy. At the Harvest Festival, Taylor delivers a heartfelt speech, followed by fireworks, which Lucas watches from the jungle. Commander Taylor prepares for a 24-hour solo mission, promising Skye they'll visit her parents' graves at Memorial Field when he returns, and noting how proud they'd be of her. Despite warnings from a young soldier and Jim about the Sixers' spy, Taylor insists on leaving and puts Jim in charge, saying he fully trusts him. At the waterfall, Taylor finds more of Lucas's equations etched into rocks and evidence of a recent campfire. Mira appears, armed with a sonic rifle, and reveals Lucas is close to creating a two-way portal between 2149 and Terra Nova. She binds Taylor's hands and starts leading him to the Sixers. Meanwhile, Zoe cares for her baby ankylosaur, changing its name frequently and calling it Boxer for the moment. Jim and Mark investigate flashing lights spotted in the jungle, suspecting Sixer activity. They trace the signal to an unfinished housing area, where Skye, hiding with a bleeding hand, watches as Jim spots blood floating in paint sealant. Mira explains to Taylor that her employers want to exploit Terra Nova's resources using the two-way portal and have tasked her with neutralizing him. Taylor attempts to escape, but is caught, though he secretly grabs a sharp thorn to cut his restraints. Back at the colony, Jim tries to collect the blood sample, but it disperses in the sealant. Meanwhile, Skye, still bleeding, rushes off after Josh apologizes for his involvement with the Sixers. In the lab, Malcolm warns Elizabeth that Zoe's pet ankylosaur must be released into the wild to survive. Skye sneaks in to treat her hand, while Jim arrives with the paint sealant, hoping to identify the spy through the diluted blood. Elizabeth suggests Malcolm might have better luck analyzing it. As Mira leads Taylor deeper into the jungle, she shares her past as a former convict trying to create a better life for her daughter, Sienna. A pterosaur flies overhead, giving Taylor the opportunity to free his hands, overpower Mira, and take her weapons. As Taylor leads her away, a slasher silently watches them from the bushes. Meanwhile, the Sixers wait for Skye, who is late for their meeting. Skye sees Josh preparing to leave.
That bitch is a spy. I was over here chatting and shit, but y'all couldn't hear me. But yeah, I was saying that bitch is a spy. I was trying to wonder what's her involvement and shit the whole time, but yeah, I get it now. I'm trying to leave my mic on, but I can't.
Leave the colony and asks to join him. He agrees, and she hurries to get ready. During their trek, Taylor questions Mira about Lucas. She reveals Lucas harbors a deep hatred for Taylor, stemming from an incident in Somalia. When she presses him further, Taylor angrily slams her against a tree. Mira insists she's only following Lucas's orders, but their conversation is interrupted when they realize something is stalking them. Back at the colony, Jim convinces Malcolm to salvage a blood sample from the paint sealant. Jim and Elizabeth also stop Zoe from sneaking her baby ankylosaur out of the lab. At the worksite, Skye pretends to check in with the foreman but sneaks off to meet the Sixers. At their camp, she visits her mother, who is gravely ill with syncytial fever. A Sixer blames Skye for delaying intel, which postponed the delivery of her mother's medicine. Skye hands over the information and spends a brief moment with her mother. Jim brings Elizabeth a workable blood sample, and she explains the DNA test will take overnight. Later, Skye returns to the infirmary and, seeing Elizabeth working on the blood sample, secretly destroys it to cover her tracks. In the jungle, Taylor and Mira are attacked by two slashers. They escape by jumping off a waterfall, though Taylor loses his rifle. Taylor notes that the young, territorial slashers will likely keep hunting them. He returns Mira's knife, suggesting they fight the dinosaurs together. Jim learns from Elizabeth that the blood sample was destroyed, narrowing the list of suspects to those with lab access. Meanwhile, Taylor and Mira craft weapons, preparing for another fight with the slashers. During their preparations, Mira reveals she was imprisoned for joining a secessionist movement before coming to Terra Nova. Their conversation is cut short when the slashers return. Mira shoots one with an arrow, and Taylor finishes it off with a flaming spear, forcing the other to retreat. Afterward, they share a brief moment, with Taylor noting they could have made a good team. They part ways soon after. Elizabeth later tells Jim that the blood sample wasn't entirely wasted. It belonged to a female, reducing the list of suspects to 47 women with lab access. The Shannons release Zoe's ankylosaur back into the wild, where an adult ankylosaur quickly takes it in. Taylor returns to camp and asks Jim how he enjoyed being in command. Jim admits it's not a role he'd want every day. As Jim leaves, Skye arrives to see Taylor. He offers to take her to Memorial Field, commenting again that her parents would be proud of her. Skye, though unsettled, insists she's fine when
Her mom is alive, so why you keep mentioning her parents? Oh, you probably don't know that her mom is alive when she's a spy. Skye, spy, hi.
asked if something is on her mind. Taylor and Jim monitor the terminus, where arrivals from 2149 enter Terra Nova. Taylor orders Jim to capture the Sixers' spy before the 11th pilgrimage arrives, setting up 24-hour surveillance. Jim questions Skye, who claims she was home with Josh. Meanwhile, Maddie's Plex malfunctions, and Josh suggests trading with Derwin. Skye asks Josh to cover for her, and though he doesn't suspect her, he agrees. Skye sneaks a tape to the Sixers' camp and unexpectedly meets Lucas, who reveals he's close to figuring out how to transport people from Terra Nova back to 2149. He threatens Skye's mother, forcing her to use the eye's computing power for his calculations. Jim places a camera by a drainage ditch, suspecting it as a spy's entry point. When he questions Josh again, Josh covers for Skye. Skye uploads the data for Lucas, while Derwin tells Maddie she needs something valuable to trade, like a tire for his wheelchair. At the Sixers' camp, Skye delivers the data to Lucas. They discuss Lucas's hatred for his father, which began in 2138. Skye asks why, but Lucas only tells her to ask Taylor. Meanwhile, Jim catches footage of Skye sneaking into the colony. After confronting Josh, Jim reports to Taylor, who plans to have Curran confirm Skye's involvement. Taylor mentions a supply convoy to Skye, suspecting the Sixers will attack it. Jim prepares for an ambush, but it turns out to be brachiosaurs. At the Sixers' camp, Mira is furious Skye didn't warn her about the convoy and threatens to withhold her mother's medicine. Skye warns that if anything happens to her mother, she's done spying. Taylor is confused by the lack of an ambush, while Jim realizes Skye is only providing minimal intel because of blackmail. Lucas informs Skye he's returning to 2149 and warns her not to return to the colony. His employers, who hired the Sixers, are coming and will kill anyone who resists. He says, "Control the past, control the future," relishing Taylor's impending defeat. Maddie trades with Boylan for Derwin's core and tells Jim about Boylan's charity. Skye tearfully confesses her spying to her mother, who urges her to tell Taylor the truth and not return, as she's ready to die. Jim and Taylor follow Skye to Relay Station 9, where she reveals the Sixers' treatment for syncytial fever and Lucas's plan at the terminus. At the terminus, Lucas sends an energy burst to knock out the guards. He warns that using sonic blasters will destroy the portal and server Terra Nova's future link. Taylor refuses to relent, but Lucas steps into the portal and vanishes. Sky learns Curran brought her mother and the Sixers medicine to the hospital. Elizabeth believes Malcolm can replicate the treatment. Taylor reflects on how people rarely get a chance to atone for mistakes. Unlike Curran, he shares with Jim that Lucas never forgave him for failing to save his mother, who died in 2138. Taylor believes Lucas has returned to 2149 and that those backing him, along with the Sixers, will soon arrive in force on the 11th pilgrimage. Hearing this, Josh wonders if Kara will be among the arrivals. Taylor addresses the colony, warning of the impending battle and assuring them they will fight and win. The colony responds with grim determination. In 2149, Lucas observes a military force training from a balcony. His employer, Dr. Weaver, reassures him that everything is progressing well. Noticing Lucas's Nicoraptor scar, Weaver expresses concern about Hope Plaza's security when the 11th pilgrimage arrives, but Lucas confidently boasts about their elite army. In Terra Nova, Taylor and Jim prepare for battle at the portal terminus. When asked about destroying the portal, Malcolm explains it would simply reopen nearby. The Shannon family discusses the coming conflict. Jim promises Josh he'll protect Kara. Maddie and Mark share a goodbye kiss, and Jim and Elizabeth instruct their children to hide if the fighting reaches the colony. Taylor and Jim head to the portal, leaving Washington in charge. At the portal, Taylor sticks to protocol as the first colonists safely arrive, including Kara, who reunites with Josh. Suddenly, a man detonates a bomb, causing chaos. Jim blacks out, his last memory being the wreckage.
They demons. They know they was gonna be waiting. Damn, bro went outside. Bro came through that portal like, oh my god, I ain't even want to do this shit. Yeah.
Colonists safely arrive, including Kara, who reunites with Josh. Suddenly, a man detonates a bomb, causing chaos. Jim blacks out, his last memory being the wreckage and injured soldiers. Jim wakes in the infirmary with a severe headache. Outside, Terra Nova is overrun by enemy soldiers and tanks. Mira, Lucas, and Weaver have taken over Taylor's office. Attacked by 2 soldiers, Jim is saved by Elizabeth, who explains the colony was overtaken 3 days ago after Washington surrendered. Taylor is hiding in the jungle. At home, Jim is greeted by Maddie and Zoe, and Josh tearfully reveals Kara was killed in the explosion, clutching her necklace in grief. That night, Jim roams the occupied colony, frustrated by the new strict rules. He learns Washington isn't imprisoned but is under surveillance at Boylan's bar. At the bar, Jim finds Washington surrounded by soldiers bullying Boylan. She reveals that the Phoenix Group, mercenaries sent to take over Terra Nova, is responsible. She also explains the portal terminus was destroyed, but the Phoenix Group brought a new 2-way portal, lost after encountering Carnotaurus. Malcolm is being forced to repair it. Jim confronts Malcolm, who admits he's being coerced by the Phoenix Group. Jim advises him to stall the repairs. When Lucas, Mira, and Weaver arrive, Jim and Malcolm outsmart them, with Jim pretending to be mentally impaired from the explosion. Lucas is fooled, but Mira remains suspicious. In the infirmary, Elizabeth notices hand-etched numbers on bullets and informs Jim, who realizes they are map coordinates to Taylor's location. Jim plans to sneak out to meet him. The next day, Jim advises Josh to get his job back at Boylan's bar to gather intel from soldiers. Meanwhile, Lucas and Weaver check on the meteoric ore supply. Annoyed by a bug bite, Weaver complains as their convoy is briefly delayed by Casey Derwin's broken wheelchair. This distraction allows Jim to stow away unnoticed. At the cliffs, Commander Hooper informs them about the vast ore supply, but the wildlife poses a problem. Weaver shoots a harmless brachiosaur, unsettling Lucas. Disgusted, Jim slips away as Hooper discusses plans to bomb the area to clear the wildlife. Jim reunites with Taylor, Mark.
Rich people just look at shit and be like, ooh, strip mall, mansions, family homes, car wash, fast food, blowed up. Straight to construction, gang.
Dunham, Riley, and the surviving soldiers. Saddened by the loss of 2 men to Carnotaurs, Taylor learns from Jim about Washington's surrender and the bomb threat. Riley works carefully to defuse the pyrosonic bomb despite its unfamiliar design. From a nearby hill, Weaver spots the group and alerts Lucas. Lucas orders the bomb be detonated, but Hooper refuses, pointing out they're still within the blast zone. Riley successfully disarms the bomb, and the group escapes. Enraged, Lucas fires a cannon into the valley, sending fiery debris toward Taylor's Rhino transport. But they dodge the flames and escape, further infuriating Lucas. Jim sneaks back into the colony, feigning disorientation. Guards warn Elizabeth that if he's caught outside again, he'll be brought back in a body bag. At Taylor's office, Mira and Lucas discuss plans. Mira, disgusted by Lucas's drinking, is puzzled when a Phoenix guard asks her to explore the Badlands, though he refuses to explain the purpose. Skye approaches Lucas, requesting a private conversation. Though Lucas sees her as a sister, he's grown fond of her. Skye tells Lucas that since Taylor refuses to forgive her for spying, she plans to align with him. Jim devises a plan to place tracking devices on Phoenix soldiers and rovers, allowing Taylor to sabotage them. As soldiers are taken down in the jungle, Lucas grows suspicious, sensing someone is helping his father. At Boylan's bar, Lucas taunts Josh, mocking his grief over Kara's death. Skye arrives and Lucas orders Josh to leave. He makes an unwanted advance on Skye, which she resists. Josh punches Lucas, but Lucas retaliates, leaving Josh bloodied. Skye screams and runs to get Jim. As Lucas watches his men beat Josh, Boylan intervenes, pleading that Josh is just a kid. Lucas dismisses him, saying Josh needs to be made an example. Just as Lucas is about to escalate the punishment, Jim arrives, hitting Lucas with a crutch and trying to fight off the guards. Overpowered, Jim is caught. Suspecting Jim of helping Taylor, Lucas searches him and finds a tracking device confirming his suspicions. He orders Jim and Josh to be thrown into the brig. Lucas visits Jim and Josh in the brig, informing Josh he's free to go after Skye convinced him. He gives Jim one last chance to reveal Taylor's location, but Jim remains silent, leading Lucas to torture him with an electrical device. Meanwhile, Weaver's condition worsens from his bug bites. Elizabeth reveals he's been injected with parasite larvae and offers him an antidote in exchange for helping Jim escape. Weaver agrees. As Lucas tortures Jim, Jim asks why he hates his father. Lucas explains that during the war, Taylor chose to save him over his mother, leading Lucas to believe Taylor resented him. Jim tries to reason with him, but Lucas remains bitter. Weaver arrives.
He's a dickhead. Your mom probably said, bro, take the kid. Shit. He got a future. I'm old. Sometimes, well, probably was too young.
Claiming to have found Taylor's camp, and Lucas rushes off, allowing Weaver to free Jim. Weakened by the torture, Jim is taken home where Elizabeth drugs Weaver instead of giving him the antidote, revealing she never injected parasites. The Shannons prepare to flee and join Taylor. Lucas realizes Weaver lied and orders a search for Jim. Soldiers break into the Shannon house, finding Weaver unconscious. The Shannons hide near storage tanks, waiting for Washington, who arrives and creates an explosion to distract the soldiers, allowing the Shannons to escape. They are picked up by Dunham and taken to Taylor. Washington is captured and brought to Lucas, who realizes she helped the Shannons. He demands answers, but Washington refuses to talk. Lucas shoots her coldly. At Taylor's camp, Zoe comforts Taylor.
Damn, R.P. Washington, man. She was bad as hell. Damn. Bro just fucked up in the head on some real shit.
Taylor, and Jim relays Washington's message about Kulao Cham. Taylor recalls a past battle and decides to destroy the portal, cutting Terra Nova off from 2149. Hooper prepares ore shipments, including a mysterious fourth. Lucas plans to transport it, with Skye volunteering to join him. Jim volunteers to destroy Hope Plaza, with Mark and Dunham posing as Phoenix soldiers to help. On the road, Lucas grows suspicious of Skye, but she convinces him to stop the transport. Mark and Dunham reveal themselves and capture Lucas. He escapes after knocking Skye unconscious. With the ore already sent, Lucas races to warn Hooper about the portal's imminent destruction, but interference stops him. Taylor intercepts Lucas. At Hope Plaza, Jim hides in the mysterious shipment. Weaver presents the ore to Phoenix Group businessmen, but they're more interested in the shipment. When opened, Jim injects the syringe into a concealed Carnotaurus. The beast bursts out, killing Weaver and a businessman. In the ensuing chaos, Jim plants the bomb and fights off soldiers. Taylor and Lucas engage in a brutal fight. Lucas admits admiration for Taylor, but Taylor's mention of their mother causes Lucas to break down. Moved, Taylor embraces him until Lucas stabs him. As Lucas prepares to finish Taylor,
Bro, why the hell would you hug this moron? He just shot my girl like a couple of seconds ago and you gonna hug him? Because you mentioned his mom and shit. He don't care. Bro already lost his mind. The fuck wrong with you?
Sky shoots him twice, killing him. As Hope Plaza descends into chaos, Jim sets the bomb while
that nigga. And Sky, you baited a couple times though, but good kill. Fuck wrong with this nigga and shit, man.
Carnotaurus rampages through the plaza, killing Weaver and others. Jim races to sever Terra Nova's connection to 2149. Meanwhile, Sky tends to Taylor's wounds, apologizing for Lucas. They soon realize Lucas has survived and escaped. As Jim heads toward the portal, Weaver confronts him, enraged at the destruction. Jim warns Weaver about the approaching Carnotaurus, but Weaver ignores him and is killed by the creature. Jim narrowly escapes, racing down the collapsing walkway as the portal is destroyed, sealing off Terra Nova from 2149. In Terra Nova, Malcolm accidentally damages the portal terminus, causing Jim to reappear elsewhere. He evades the Carnotaurus and reunites with Taylor's camp, where he embraces Elizabeth. At the wreckage, Mira demands to return to her daughter, but Hooper coldly informs her that Hope Plaza is destroyed, trapping them all in the past. Devastated, Mira realizes she will never see her daughter again. Back at camp, Malcolm reflects on how much larger the jungle feels now that they're cut off from 2149. Taylor receives a call from Boylan, who reveals that the Phoenix group has left Terra Nova and headed north. Puzzled, Taylor wonders why they would go to the Badlands, a seemingly barren area. Jim reveals that the container they swapped contained something from the Badlands that the Phoenix group was eager to retrieve. When they open the container, it reveals the prow of an 18th century ship. Jim and Elizabeth are stunned, questioning how the relic ended up in the Badlands without passing through Hope Plaza. Taylor speculates about what else might be hidden there and its importance to the Phoenix group. As Jim and Elizabeth walk home, Jim shares that Taylor wants to keep